Good morning, everybody. Let's get started. Where did our Discord go? Discord? Oh. Okay. Well, behind the magic. Here we go. Okay. May also pull up Twitch chat in case we get anybody in there. Oh, hey. We got a new follower on Twitch, Dirk CT. I don't know if they will end up seeing this, but either way, appreciate the follow there, Dirk CT from earlier today over there on Twitch. Maybe they'll get the notification that we're going live. All right. This one's smaller. Okay. Morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim. I go by Foamy Guy on GitHub and Discord. We are getting ready to kick off another morning of working on CircuitPython stuff. I'm getting back into some library PRs and things like that. I'll take a look at the core as well. I haven't kept up too much with the core overbreak, so we'll see if there's anything in there that's kind of in my wheelhouse. But definitely we'll be looking at some library stuff. I've been going back through some of the PRs either that I opened or reviewed last week, following up on those. This one is the first one I will probably look at here, which is in display shapes. It's specifically for Sparkline, and is it one of the examples, or is this actually... No, okay, yeah, this is the actual class, multi-Sparkline. Also, before I get going too far, let me just say again for anybody perhaps who did not watch Deep Dive yesterday, check out the Simple Electronics podcast on YouTube. Huge thanks to Dan from Simple Electronics who had me on for the latest podcast, number 62 there. So you can find that on YouTube. You search Simple Electronics. It's also posted a little bit further back up in the chat, this live broadcast chat, which is what's on the screen there. If that's the kind of thing that you're interested in, check that out. I had a great time talking with Dan. So Sparkline, this is probably where I'll start. This is basically a line graph. A line graph that can keep moving. You can keep adding more and more data points to it, and it will keep drawing lines like from the last data point to the new data point as you add it. Oh, sweet. Yeah, I remember you talking about putting this together in the shroud and everything. Let me link here. Let me check this out. Yeah, that looks awesome. Oh yeah, I love the way that you put the TV shroud around it as well. That is lovely. Thank you for sharing this. Laser dot. Yeah, so for folks that don't know, this was a project from a little while back. Nico Kitty was the name of this project. It was modeled after an old school, I guess, kind of like applet you would install on the computer or a Mac, and it would follow your mouse around, or it would just kind of... Oh, I love the little tag on the back there as well. Nice. Oh, and you got disco mode going out the back there. Sweet. So this old school one was like this little mouse would just follow your, follow your mouse around on the computer, follow your cursor around, let's say. We made the CircuitPython version, and then Seagrover added it to be able to do all of those different cats, and got it running inside that enclosure there. That's looking really nice. Yeah, that's great. I'm sure that person will love that little widget for sure. So So this is basically like a line graph. This person is saying that the current one, they can only put about 64 points of data in it. They have modified it to use polygon instead of line, and they can now put 160 data points in it, which is over double, so that sounds pretty nice. They have used a cyclic buffer for storing values to reduce fragmentation. So I guess instead of just making new variables that eventually get garbage collected, they have maybe defined like a buffer object that just like stays alive, and they use parts of it and then reuse parts of it. Although this is a new, so this is new multi-spark line, is it? Polygon. Oh, nice. They added, that was nice of them. They went back and added docs to Polygon. That's unrelated to Sparkline specifically, but yeah, that's cool. Doc strings, looks like it was missing a couple. Or they added a couple. They add those? Interesting. So they have extended, okay, so they added these. They have extended Polygon, actually. I misunderstood at first. Polygon now has new capability. Something to do with colors, and then close, I would assume, means whether it draws the last leg of the polygon. You give it a list of points, I think, and then it will like draw lines between the points you give it, which, as I say that out loud, certainly does sound pretty helpful for a line chart. Close, my guess, without having actually gotten all the way into it, my guess is this will say true or false to draw that last line or not. So like to close the shape or leave it open from the second to last point to the last point, or maybe even from the last point back to the first point. Actually, that might be it. I think I lean towards the latter. It's probably from the last point back to the first point, which I guess you could think of as second to last. I don't know who's to say which point's which, but zip. I'm not familiar with zip. I'll have to look into that a little bit. I think it's one of the, I think it's like know the right word for it, but it's like a helper function that runs through a list and like modifies each thing in the list or something. Maybe ties two lists together. Is that the idea? Like a zipper interlocking. Maybe it gives you, maybe it takes two lists and then interlocks the things. That would be like a zipper, at least. I have no idea if that's right. We'll have to figure it out. This looks like, I think probably Pylint. My guess is Pylint would have complained about this. Which is weird, right? Like, what is the functional difference here? I'm not sure that I necessarily agree with Pylint in this case, if that's true that Pylint complained about it. I've seen stuff like this, and I'm not sure I understand, like, why this one is better, but XS. Is it XS or X's? XS. YS. Start. I think it's for start. Maybe? Smallest or X small? I mean, that's really what I'd be in favor of, is like try to make it a little bit longer of a word that describes what it is. I'm not sure if it's just supposed to be like X's, like multiple X's. It's a list, so it looks like it's going to be more than one thing. So yeah, I guess it's just X's, like a list of X points, and then a list of Y points. That would make sense then to zip it together into one list where every other one is XY? Or is it going to put it into tuples somehow? Maybe XY for each tuple, and then you end up with a list of tuples? Interesting. So this is draw. So did this maybe get refactored out of here and into draw? Yeah. Static method draw. Static method? Throws a polygon onto the provided bitmap. What do we extend we extend tile grid. I almost think this should just be an instance method, right? Like, we were always gonna call it with this. It's not really intended to ever be used on a different bitmap. Where does shifted come from? Points. Shifted. Shifted points, apparently. List of points that has been shifted based on X and Y offsets. Oh, okay, so it's not guaranteed the points are coming in any order, I guess, so that does make sense. So it's basically finding the rectangle that bounds all of the points that it's given by finding the biggest and smallest of each X and Y. Actually, it looks like they refactored. Well, this used to be calling line as well. There's so much stuff here. There's so much less stuff here than here. Polygon line on. Line on. Static method line on. P0, P1, I guess that's point 0.1. Color. Okay, yeah, we have P0, P1 as tuples, so we need to take them out and put them in X1, X0, Y1, Y0. I know what steep means. Line on. What's the difference between line and line on? So functionally, I guess line is taking X0, Y0, X1, Y1, whereas line on is taking tuples instead of, so it's 2 tuples instead of 4 ints. Well, I mean, it's still 4 ints, but they're inside the 2 tuples. Color. I don't follow. Is this just... I'm gonna look at the old version too. I doubt I have this cloned either. I think I'm in favor of not having both of these though, right? I think we want... I don't know that we need 2 line functions. If the only difference is one takes tuples and one takes ints... I mean, if that is the only difference, definitely I think the names should change, because I don't follow why one is called just underscore on. It should be maybe underscore tuples or something, I guess, but... Or like from points. I mean, they're both points. It's just 2 different ways to express points. Huh? Ordinal? I don't know what that is off the top of my head. Yeah. Well, I mean, it can be. Oh, okay, so on, I see what you're saying. On is an acronym maybe for ordinal number.
Yeah.
Okay. This is not a rabbit hole I want to go too far down, but I want to at least try. PyCharm plus default interpreter. For all for new projects, for not new, for opened projects. What? Really, is it a new project if you cloned it and opened it? I guess it is. From PyCharm's perspective. All right, I got a good feeling about this. We'll know the next time I clone a new thing and open it. I'm hoping that it will not just ask me, well, I'm hoping that it will select this interpreter by default. Even if it still asks me about the virtual environment, I'd like to disable that at some point as well, but it asks me to make a virtual environment for everyone, and then it promptly sets it to none after the fact, and so then I still have to go and set it to the system one, which is what I want it to use by default. Are there two lines now? So there's line here, which is the version that takes the 4 ints. That's it. That one is new. Ordinal number. One's dated on my birthday. Yeah, I don't see the need. I don't think this one should be static either. If we are going to have two of these, which I'm not necessarily sure I understand the need to have two of these. I mean, this has an underscore anyway, presuming there was a preference for this notation with two tuples rather than 4 ints. This has a leading underscore, which means it's supposed to be internal only. I would not feel so bad about changing the signature of this function if that was the thing we wanted to do, which maybe I'm missing some part of this, but it feels like the only intention that I can see here is, the only difference I guess I should say is this is now static, which means technically you could call it without an instance of polygon, which feels weird to me as well. But beyond that, the only difference is that I can see right now are the tuples versus the XY. And like, if we wanted the tuples versus the XY, I think I would say let's just change line to have tuples instead of XYs. I suppose theoretically we could change it to be static as well. Again, though, I'm not sure. I don't necessarily think I see why it should be static. I feel like it should be on the instance. Like, it's not necessarily meant for you to just draw a line into an arbitrary bitmap. It's meant for you to draw a line into the bitmap that's connected to the tile grid that the polygon is. Polygon is a tile grid. The tile grid is connected to a bitmap. Polygon's job is to draw into that specific bitmap more so than it is to generally be a tool that draws into bitmap objects. Like, the difference is kind of subtle, I suppose, but so speaking of the memory, ultimately this was memory improvements. The goal here was to save memory. Would we save a bit by not making these as tuples? Because these will get garbage collected, or no? Will these be getting garbage collected each time? Because they're going to get created as a tuple, passed into here, and then they get used inside of here as these, but I think we will be creating those each time. Would static method be needed if other shapes... It depends, I think, on how they're coded. If other shapes extend polygon, then it would not need to be static in that case. If other shapes want to be able to do that without extending polygon or without having an instance of a polygon, because like it could be extend versus like is versus has, right? The same thing you went through with the palette. The palette's not able to be extended, therefore you had to opt for a has relationship. Your object has a palette. If whatever that other shape is, if it either is a polygon, extending polygon, or if it has a polygon, then it shouldn't need that thing to be static. But if it wants to be able to do that without either of those two things, it's not extending polygon and it doesn't have one, then it would need to be static. Personally, I would argue, I think in that case, that it should be, though, if they want to make use of it, they should do one of those two things. Like, triangle here extends polygon. Sparkline extends group. This is the old sparkline too, though. We'll have to look at the new one. Round rect extends tile grid. Rect extends tile grid. Polygon is tile grid. This is all the old ones too, not the PR ones. Line extends polygon. See, that's interesting as well, that we have a line object, but we are using... But we also have like a line drawing function. I guess creating a full object that extends polygon for every line that you need inside of a polygon would certainly use up a lot of memory, though, I assume, compared to just drawing lines inside the bitmap. Circle extends round rect, which is kind of surprising, but I guess makes sense, right? It's just instead of round rect, it's a round square, and the radius of the corner curves is exactly 1/2 of the width, or the height, since it's a square. Tile grid. So we used to not go back to stock. Did we used to not have a multi-sparkline at all? We used to have only sparkline, but was it effectively multi-sparkline? Where's sparkline triple? We'll run these real quick. So sparkline simple test. What's this? This is a label example. This is in the repo for display text. There's our simple test. So it's basically just adding new points. I think they're at random, I'm not sure. Basically just adding new points. Like there is some artifacting, you know, you could see the line kind of disappear from the frame before. So like, you know, and then now that we've basically reached the maximum number of points, so now everything shifts by a little bit to the left, which kind of exacerbates that ghosting line effect. And they're still, yeah, there you are. But I think, I mean, that's just kind of part of the deal. It'd be interesting to see one of these based on vector IO. I wonder if it would be any better or worse. Axel says, excellent topic today. I've had problems with sparklines being full in memory allocation error. Oh, nice. SPR references an issue that I took up a long time ago. Sweet. See how big we managed to make the sparkline. Also, since working on these this week, I've noticed that the Ymin and Ymax are not reset in clear values. I'm going to make a PR for that later. Awesome. Yeah, it's a small world sometimes. It's crazy how something will just come up and then you'll see somebody else working on the same thing. Okay, so that's pretty good for a baseline. Let's do the multi one as well. I could copy these from here, right? Or I guess maybe I did. Ticks, I'll do this one. I think the only difference is this is gonna draw the axes and the tick marks on the axes, yeah. I mean, it's not the only difference. I guess the size is different as well. It's like a little bit smaller or whatever, but nothing with multi, certainly. Let's do triple. Okay, triple is 3 sparklines, not 3 lines on one graph. Okay. All right. So that's what I'm guessing multi-sparkline means 3 lines on one graph. That's my assumption. We shall see if that turns out to be the case. Okay, so it does not seem like that is possible today. I will go back and... Oh, can we check this? We can check this from here now, I think, right? Yeah. So I guess one thing we should do is... what's in the examples? Is there a new example? So one thing I would say, like right off the bat, I do think we should have a new example. Anytime we add new functionality, which in this case it seems like multi-sparkline is a new functionality. Yeah, multiple sparklines on one chart, yeah. Anytime we add new functionality, I am gonna be pro, let's make an example of it as well. Gotta make an example out of it, no. Make an example of it, just so people know how to use it. And discover it, right? Like, I don't know if it's necessarily super common or not, but like one of the first places I look whenever I'm gonna work on a new device or play with a new library or just sit down to work on anything new, whether it's like for a project or a PR test or anything, like the examples folder is pretty much one of my first stops all the time. So I am always gonna be pro adding stuff to there. I kind of treat it as not only examples, but documentation in a way, like getting started documentation. So we'll copy the example and then start modifying it from there. Still down here somewhere, buddy? Ran off to go sleep somewhere, probably. What I will do though is test the old examples with the new library. And to keep the suspense going, we'll do it in the same order, I guess. I'll go back to simple test. You know, where's the fun if we do the triple right out of the gate, right? Let's go back to simple test, and then I'll swap the library to the modified one, which is now the one that is checked out in my repo here. So I'm going to copy it from there, go to my device, just delete it, and put this one in its place. Oh, that's on the root. Lib. Play shapes. Although we should delete it. We should make sure that it doesn't work now. We should also connect TO. Yeah, okay. I was going to say, because if this was frozen in, then we need to copy it to a different directory, but it does not appear to be frozen in. We'll paste this. No, yeah, we got an error. So 131. Well, okay, so let's give the benefit of the doubt too. Let's take the simple test from the modified library, which I maybe did, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to copy it again, just in case. The other thing I guess we could do is let's look here. It will tell us if that changed. It seems like we do need a change inside the example. I don't see any changes in any of the examples. Only polygon, sparkline, triangle, multi-sparkline. So that will be one thing I think we'll end up needing to do. But let's double check too. So I'm on the PR branch. I'm going to copy the simple test. I'm going to put that in CodePy. Yeah, we got the error there. Okay, so we need to figure out how to fix that. That's at 131. Probably it's the same thing. Sparkline add value. So that goes inside there, 96. What goes 197 in multi? Just kind of chase this all the way through here. So 197, this just calls update. What is update? Interesting that we don't. If update, self-update. Find declaration. I think TileGrid has an update, does it? That I'm familiar with. Oh. Update is a Boolean. Wait, but no, what's self-update though? Update line? Is that supposed to be called update? Well, maybe there's part of our problem. This seems to be calling self.update, but self.update doesn't seem to exist. But that's not the error we got, is it? Strangely... a different error. The update does exist somewhere. Line 96. This is inside add values, and this is update the Boolean here. So our code is add value random. We did not pass update, but it's defaulted to true here, which should have passed through self.update, self.addValues, which would actually be super parent.addValue. Add values, actually, there's an S on the end. So that's going to be going into here. This one also does default to true. I gotta think this is supposed to be update line. Update the drawing of the spark line. and it takes an int, which we did pass an int, does Python do objects just have an update maybe? It doesn't matter that much. I do think the error here is that this should be update line. Yeah, so that makes it work. But I must say, I'm curious about why when we run it this way, why is the error... Whoops, bookmark. What to self? Look into bookmarks inside PyCharm. That could be useful. Interesting. This implies that an update exists and that we just gave it the wrong number of arguments. But I am very confused about where that update would come from. I don't know why I'm just like about to just scroll through the entire list here and find tile grid. I need to find that index page and bookmark it. This isn't really what we want, is it? Nope. That does not seem to have an update. And this says has no attribute update. No update there. So like I said, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that much. Just found it. How did we not see this before? I guess this can't find it because it doesn't know that it's a spark line and not a... When it's inside of here, it doesn't know that it's a spark line instead of a multi-spark line, and multi-spark line doesn't have update. It only has update line. So yeah. and then so this is what it was calling, and then it doesn't have the other argument. So that's where the error came from. Okay, so we solved the mystery. I think this does have to be update line. How's it going, DJ Devin? Good morning. No worries. Working on 3D modeling, slept the whole day. Yeah, I mean, sleep's important. You definitely do not ever have to apologize for missing me to sleep. You gotta sleep. Great stream. Sweet. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. What is it? So when it does have the... In the case when it does have the update, I don't know where we got button from, the update function. Okay. I do think that's just probably typo there, right? Because this got it working line. So now simple test behaves the same as it used to, which is good. So let's try the other one. The other two actually will do ticks. Whoops. Well, I did see your comment earlier about wheels and stuff as well. That kind of stuff does seem super neat. But I will say too, also don't worry too much though about like if I'm ahead of you or whatever. Like I kind of like part of my enjoyment is making stuff work within the constraints of whatever scheme is there, right? Being able to use the controls that are there to make it do stuff, that's part of the fun I get out of it as well. So definitely don't worry about that. So Sparkline has no Y top. CircuitPy 125. Fair enough. It used to have a Y top Probably has something similar. It's just, did it get renamed or something? Or is it, well, this extends multi-sparkline now. There's Y min, Y max. Is that what that is? Y top. Y bottom. I would assume that's the top and bottom of the entire graph in pixels. So the graph represents a rectangle. I would assume that's the top pixel of the rectangle and that's the bottom pixel of the rectangle. How it used to be, at least. Let's take a peek back at the current one. Y top. It was just setting Y top to Y max and Y bottom to Y min. Will be updated if auto range. Does look like it updates it. But it's not really in pixels, it's the in the units of the graph, max min, it seems like. Knocked out of the part. Even the UART stuff from a built-in display on a different board. Didn't even know that was possible. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I kind of had an idea it would be possible, but I wasn't certain when I sat down to do it. It definitely did come out very well. JP getting DVI working? Nice. Yeah, JP's the video I was watching, was it Workshop? JP's Workshop back on Thursdays. Not this afternoon, but Thursday afternoon of this week. It was he was playing with the little NES emulator. Looked like that thing was definitely really sweet. So I mean, we can't just use Y max though, because Y top got updated by these things essentially. Y tops. Oh. Right. So there is no more Y top because now there can be multiple lines. Spark line extends a multi-spark line and then presumably just only draws one of the possible lines. So I would assume Y top, we should probably be returning Y tops with an S and then square bracket 0. Get the first one in the list. And that should always be our single line if we are only having a single one. Property. We're going to need bottoms, and I assume we'll probably need X's as well? Or maybe not. Do we need X's as well, you think? Is there an X tops? No. Or an X like lefts? Rights? No. There's nothing else missing from here. Maybe we don't need the X's. There we go. Is that the exact same? I feel like I feel like we might have had more margin on the right side before, but maybe I'm wrong. Do the old not Adafruit display shapes. Make sure it crashes. That's curious. Oh, there we go. Okay, just took it a second. So Circuit. Oh, need to get a new version of Circuit. Nope, just misremembered. So that's the released version, and it looks the same on that side. Delete the real version, go back to the PR version. Let's make another comment as well on the PR for we need to add these two properties. In order to preserve backwards compatibility. It's the one where I had my... Uh-oh. I lose my... Ooh. Nope, there it is, okay. Let's close the other one. So I wish I could... I kind of wish I could put comments at lines of code that aren't modified. Because in the example, where it accesses y top and y bottom, honestly, I feel like is probably the most... That's the place I'm most inclined to put this comment, if I could patch it to a line of code. I will say you could make the argument that y top and y bottom should have always been actually coded as properties rather than just getting put on there inside of a knit here, right? Like, this kind of created a property by doing this, but from the outside, you would not necessarily know that that existed unless you looked inside the code. Whereas if it was a property, then it's kind of self-documenting as well. And it gets doc strings, for instance, so it's like literally actually documenting. Thought that was a custom UF2. Let me catch up where we're at here. No, that was possible. Okay, thought that was custom UF2, so it's not exactly universally easy to use DOVI. Love to be able to pipe the display for a sequencer to HDMI. Ooh. Could definitely be fun. Raspberry Pi would be the easiest way to do that. HDMI, I think, is tricky for microcontrollers at this point. But I also haven't delved too much into it. Looking forward to seeing what Seagrover does with the waveform thing. Nice. So I guess we can comment it here. What's the name of that? It's like ticks example. Display shapes sharp. Display shapes sparkline ticks. have them copied? I do actually have them copied. I think JP said it was DVI, but running on it. Oh yeah, I have seen stuff like that as well, where it's technically DVI protocol or whatever, but it's inside a different cable, and it happens to be inside of an HDMI cable. I have seen some stuff like that. Yeah, no, I am with you there. That's true. I am with you there. I didn't realize his was, I didn't catch that part of it, I guess, closely enough. I didn't realize his was through the HDMI cable like that. I assumed he had an actual DVI with the white and all the pins. It's a licensing rather than a nomenclature. Oh, I see. HDMI. It's not actually technically a cable. I mean, it is a cable, but it's if you want to use the term HDMI, you're talking about a specific implementation of that cable and the licensed variations thereof, rather than, generally speaking, the cable that has the shape that plugs into an HDMI plug. Gotta love stuff like that. Test this out. It does seem just to allow that example to run successfully. All right, let's do the triple. Three module mockups. DVI and HDMI are essentially equivalent. One requires you to pay a standards body for the privilege to use an acronym, and the other is an open standard. Nice. I am relatively anti-paying a licensing fee to use an acronym, so I guess I'm on Team DVI at this point then. I remember, is there an HDMI company? I remember at one point they were making those like next gen HDMI where they also carried another thing. Like one carried like Ethernet and video, and then another one carried like, gosh, they had a few. Was one of them like extra sound channels or something for surround sound stuff? I feel like there was like a few different choices of you could buy an HDMI cable that carried HDMI and like one other thing. 3 module mockups. Nice. So these are like printed out versions of potential designs. Am I understanding that correctly? HDMI is slightly more complex, but not enough to pay for the privilege of using HDMI. Like you didn't want to say that, or the or the N-word video game company that shall not be named. DisplayPort's better. DisplayPort's better sometimes. There are some cases where I like HDMI over DisplayPort. DisplayPort, the little latching mechanism I think is nice, but there are times where you don't actually want that latching mechanism. That can lead to more trouble if people are yanking on wires. Oh, I'm probably changing the stream right now, aren't I? Yeah, sorry, I popped that over to help with. Let me put that back and I'll use a different Discord. Just got a ping over there on the other channel. Old weekly meeting notes saw that you're playing around with drawing arcs. Anything come out of my tinkering? Oh boy. So I want to say oh boy. Would have been a while ago. Usually start with the panel design, or if I needed functionality. Might have been a vector IO bug hunt. Secret found. I think you were on that for a week or two. Vector IO, I don't think has a way to do. I mean, it has circle, but it doesn't have a way to do arcs too much. I think I am trying to think. So what we're gonna do? This is a nice trick for folks that, if you're trying to go back and find something that you were working on, if you're like me and your memory is not the greatest in the world, the weekly meeting is good for that because it's like a weekly heartbeat of writing your thoughts down, writing your stuff down that you're working on. What would be the easiest way to search it, though? Do you happen to see the dates? Already have it. Well, that makes sense. We already have it because I updated after I run the meetings, of course. So I know at one time I was trying to come up with a formula to draw circles. Trying to implement, I mean, not really, that's not the right way to phrase that at all. It was definitely not coming up with a formula to draw circles. I was implementing a formula made by somebody much better at geometry than myself in our code. I just use GitHub search. Arc. Oh, the gauge. The gauge. That could have been when I was helping somebody work on the gauge. I did not make that gauge. The archive arcs. Yeah. This is where. This is... Okay. So I'm actually going to go and look back at YouTube also to see if there's anything there. June 28th. Unfortunately, though, this might be the kind of deal where it's just going to be like on a PyPortal somewhere. That's kind of my best guess, is that whatever, if anything exists from this still, it may just be on a PyPortal. June 28th, 21. I don't know. Might be too old for streams, is it? Cross-reference, yeah. I don't know, does this show anything I don't want to? I'm not sure. I'm gonna pull this over. Rows per page. Can just tell it, boy, this interface is not so great. Filtering doesn't allow you to filter by a date. If you want to look through the dates, you just click next a bunch of times until you get to the right date. And you have to scroll back because you can't see the next button and the date at the same time. June 18th. Learn guide stuff. Looks like running. That certainly looks like working on some arcs. Yes, midpoint circle algorithm. I do remember the name of that algorithm now. Midpoint circle drawing. Was I running cookie cutter for an arcs thing? Definitely feels like I'm running cookie cutter and adding a thing to the bundle. SSH 1106. I don't even know what that is. It's a display, I guess. I do not recall adding that to the bundle, though. Making a script to update it? Looking at the script to update it? Build bundles? So it almost feels like we just accidentally caught my browser open on the page where I was learning about that arc stuff, but was not actually the main topic of the stream, or perhaps seemingly even a topic of the stream so far. tools. Seems like we never did actually get into anything outside of infrastructure. I should have noted the timestamp when I saw that one. Do I have arcs on the funhouse? Or is it powered on? It's not powered on. It's crazy that I just like coincidentally landed on, and I totally should have written the seek point down. Oh, there it was. I have no idea where it was at. This is definitely what I was working from, though. Whoops. Shoot. One problem will be, though, I don't know. I don't necessarily think I had the Titano at that point. I'm not sure. No idea what I would have called it. Circle? I don't know if I would have used midpoint. So undo the chat here. I haven't seen the chat for a minute. Alright, I'll have to catch up in a few minutes. It is worth looking at the gauge, though, right? Oh, that one too. I forgot about that one. I forget the name of that analog component, the little eyeball thing. Community bundle? Community bundle, I think. Was it CircuitPython.org bundle? Because it was a display IO thing. Okay. I'll call that good. Honestly, the code inside of here is better than whatever I would have had. Whatever I would have had would have been just on my PyPortal drawing a couple of circles and measuring sizes or something. I think that's all I ever ended up getting it. At one point I was trying to make a filled circle by drawing a bunch of circles like 1 pixel smaller than the previous. So like draw a big one and then draw 1 pixel smaller, 1 pixel smaller, 1 pixel smaller. I believe that is the main thing I did with any of this code that I actually implemented, and it didn't end up working. Turns out there's gaps. Two ways to order playlists: by the date the video was added or the date it was published. Interesting. Needed vector IO arcs. It would be interesting to implement arcs in vector IO. That would be kind of fun. I think you should have a segment in each deep dive called Hello Future Tim, and where you give a brief summary of what you worked on. That would be a pretty good idea, actually. Kind of a conclusion thing. Okay. Actually link that? Yeah. Where are we at here? Pixel, all right. Pixel coordinates are out of bounds. So I did the triple. Yeah, pixel coordinates are out of bounds. 243. Sparkline 2 add value. So one thing is it's random, so it might not fail sometimes, I guess. It is weird. So I mean, did we just get a fluke, or is it like so did the bounds change? Because it is random, so it's not guaranteed to fail. Did the bounds change, or did we just get lucky before? Turn this to not. Paste that in there. Okay, I'm gonna let this run a second, and I'm gonna go and make another coffee, because partially we just have random. I mean, the other one failed fairly quickly, so I kind of don't think this is, but I also want a new coffee, so I'm just gonna let that run and see if it fails. BRB. Let's see here. Oh, do not have the Bluetooth headphones on. Okay, that definitely would have failed if it was just chance the same way. So I think the bounds must have changed somehow. I am also going to switch Bluetooth because these are actually charged now, and this way I will not kind of like Wile E. Coyote myself with the earbud wire there. I get up and walk away. That's dangerous. Like, I used these wired ones for a long time. I switched to Bluetooth for a little bit, but then I stopped using them as much, and I kind of gotten back into the habit of using the Bluetooth ones. You get in the habit of just standing up and walking away from your desk. And then you go back to the wired ones, and you're like, whew. It's dangerous. Magnetic connectors on headphones are amazing. Oh, yeah, that'd be a good idea. That would be a good, and mine is like extra bad because the it's just a 3.5mm and it's like around the other way. So like it's gonna yank this other microphone that's on my desk, which is gonna yank a bunch of other. It's gonna be bad. Rather have it disconnect. Yeah, totally agree there. I should look into some kind of quick connect or something. Is this is a thing that exists already? They sell these? Hold on. Magnetic headphone? Okay. You're saying the USB ones, maybe. Which they were awesome. Or maybe they had these before? Magnetic? Let me just look magnetic. So there is USB there. Oh, is this? No, this is contact switch. Straight angle. I mean, you could do something like that and just run audio over it, I guess, right? Weird stuff. I don't usually browse Adafruit too much. I'm usually like search for the exact thing, and it's usually one of the top ones. Interesting to roll through. Is this like a on the old? What is that? That's, first of all, that's USB. Weird. That's just how those look then? Interesting. Never seen those. Why, this is like all USB. Headphone. Alright. Oh, that's a black woven. Oh, it is USB that you used. Okay. I do have these cables. Are these with magnetic tips? Oh no. With magnetic tips. Wait, so the end comes off, or? Yeah, it looks like the end comes off there. Oh, okay, there you go. Huh. That's kind of nifty. Be able to switch them around. I occasionally have a need for a straight through, like a cable with this on both ends. I have some electronics that are weird. Sometimes I have a need for a cable with this on both ends. Having it be an adapter on a normal cable would be kind of nice instead of actually having a, using 3.5. Those headphones are, yeah. Oh, I see where the disconnect is, yeah. Yeah, no, I don't have USB. I don't have like a full headset, like USB headset or anything. These are just some cheapo ink skull candy. I think that's what it is, right? And it is 3.5mm. It is janky as heck though. It is basically 3.5mm. These headphones are 3.5mm. They plug into this, which is my old microphone. Everybody say hello to the old microphone. It just sat on the desk and it reverberated through the desk. But it has a headphone jack on the back. So really, it is now a glorified headphone extender. I did not use the microphone functionality of it, but it is nice because it has a multi-foot USB cable between it and the computer, and then it has a multi-foot 3.5mm cable from the headphones, like from my ears to it when I use those. So that's kind of its role now, as being an extender. So it is, I guess it's a bit of both. It's 3.5mm to that thing, and then it's USB back to the Honestly, it might even be to the hub, and then it's USB again into the computer. So we definitely have a different bound, it seems like, right? Because this fails quick on the new version, oops, but not at all. I mean, it ran that one for several minutes. So, did I not change it back? Taking a second. Well, you know, sometimes it sticks there, I have noticed, actually. Sometimes even, oh, nope, it did. Just taking a second. There we go. Yeah, see, it failed, like, right away. Out of bounds. Wonder what the number, let's print the number. Right, but then we'll have to make a variable of it. Num equals. I guess if something changed on one edge or the other, like it used to be valid to do the top number and now it's not, or maybe it used to be. Would this give you starting at 0, or would this actually give you -1 sometimes? Ooh. Interesting. How does that work? I guess there must be an audio USB protocol already. This is an adapter I had no idea existed. Enameled copper wires. Did it not run? Oh, I didn't print it. .67. Maybe it's not a problem of the bounds changed, but something used to call max min. Maybe something used to round off decimals. But I mean, our uniform, this is very small, right? Do we always fail when it's on a 0? Let's, I'll step through the code here in a minute, but I want to see a few more of the fail cases. That one was negative. Interesting. So it does let you go negative. It handles some of them fine. That one went for a long time, relatively speaking. Failed on a positive, actually, 1.2. Wait, it fails on... Okay, interesting. Do not think it's as simple as like one edge or the other, because it sometimes succeeds on ones that are further away than ones that it previously failed on. I mean, succeeded on, or vice versa. I don't know which way I said it. One failed on -0.8. But positive 1.0 succeeded right there. -0.5 succeeded. -0.6 succeeded. But then one time it failed on a positive. 1.2, but then 1.8 succeeded back here. So it's not just like too big. Okay, interesting. Maybe it's something, maybe there's a bug in the way that it rounds. Maybe it's rounding somewhere and it should be going down. I accidentally paused the chat too by scrolling up. Find that with a magnetic cable. Stop the cord yank. Yeah. Maybe some type of float rounding error. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking now. That's what I'm thinking. So we are inside of here. 96, which is basically just calling up to the multi-one, add values. 197. And we call update lines. 319. 316, excuse me. When it calls draw, which, like, yeah, I could look ahead and we would see the same thing, but I get an idea for the flow here. So draw, and then this is the last one inside multi-spark line. 237 calls our new, I don't know if it's new, but it's now static, so we call this polygon draw. $100 inside of here is our line on 157. Let's print these. We print these points. These points, yeah. Let's print these, right? Or is our index error into points? That might actually pixel coordinates out of bounds. No, yeah, we're going inside there. 157. Okay, yeah, so let's print these. I don't know why I'm gonna type this. That makes no sense. Let's copy it so we don't type the wrong thing and then wonder about why it's different. Color ID? The color ID the problem? Probably not, right? It shouldn't be the color ID. Let's let it run a couple of times like that. Should, I guess, maybe like this different somehow. I'll be back in a minute. Zero 107. No 7 is the highest Y I see. 98 there succeeded. One ran for a while. Negative 135. Or 0. So far we failed on 0x both times. No, but there's a success on 0x. I mean, a negative for pixels does seem bad. I'm not seeing any negatives that do succeed. Like, negatives here are okay. But we end up with positive points from those. Positive points, positive points, positive, positive. Negative there is okay, but we still have all positive points. Okay. Yeah. Oh, well, this time we went to 109. So we didn't fail for negative. We did the 107 we failed on one before. Negatives make sense for failing. What was the previous? Was it 107, the one before this? Yeah. What is our height? Okay, so let's do step through one more, I guess. So we're on going 58 now, 158 inside of here. So this is what is steep? It's inverting the x and y axis, I guess. I guess it makes sense because it would make it look like it's running straight up, I suppose. Okay, we're starting to switch to printfs, yeah. That's a good example and reinforces everyone. Yeah, it took me a while to get to the point of using that by default, kind of subconsciously, so to speak, that I am happier for it. I think it's a much nicer tool. Like I started using the curly brackets inside there a lot rather than dot format. Very convenient. The 158, I mean, technically that says steep true. Do we always fail at 158? So maybe our problem is only with steep ones? Does look like it. 60, but this changed because I changed the prints, or did it? No, I don't know. I mean, I added the print, but that is 60. That looks like it probably did fail there, truthfully. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do is BMP size. And then inside of here, we're going to print the two that we actually use because I want them to be in the right order. So in this case, we're not allowed to access index 100 if our size is only 100. 99 would be the tallest one we can access. And in this case, negatives, we're just not allowed at all. Can't get a negative pixel. So how did we... Why are we getting negatives now? So the... Let's take a step back here. What are our spark lines? Does this always fail on one spark line? No, 245. Spark line 2. Was it always sparkline 2? This is the one where we changed here. We just don't add values to it. Does this run forever? Albeit kind of slow. Was it not faster before? Oh, we're printing so much stuff though. Yeah, we slowed it down by printing. Line 2 then must be the blue one. Is it the only one that goes negative? And or is it the only one that is steep? Oh, steep is not like a settable thing? Oh, we do? Or if this is a hint. Seems like possibly a hint. Expected int. This is sparkline 1 though. Sparkline 1 seems to work fine. It does have ymin. Ymax. This does suggest maybe at least the at least the type is wrong. Oh my goodness. That shouldn't change functionality though. Okay, so conversely, let's turn on only sparkline 2. I will say sparkline 2 is the only one so far that I've seen where it's negative. This is positive, 0 and 1. This one allowed negative. These are all going to end up positive. I is less than 15? What is I? I don't know. Not sure what that logic's doing. I don't think it's necessarily relevant though to understand for this. It is always going to be positive, and if we comment out here, that is going to turn off the add values. This thing can keep counting, that's fine. And so did I turn back on too? Yeah, it looks like it, okay. That will fail after not very long probably. And in this case, we failed because we cannot access negative pixels inside of this. Why do we end up with negative pixels? How did we not end up with negative pixels before? Basically becomes the question. The grounding negative value increases the absolute value? Oh, interesting. Round negative 3.6 equals 4.0. Rounding a negative value increases its absolute's value. Does it flip the sign too, or does it give you negative 4.0? trying to think, what's the easiest way to like step through and figure out? I mean, we know that we know that we cannot access negative things inside of bitmaps. The thing we're accessing always needs to be 0 to 99. In this case, we got which one? You know, I don't know. 5. You know, one thing we don't get to know is the which one of these ended up being true. And is it the same one always? So this one failed on the high side. It tried to access 100. That one feels like it could just be off by 1, no problem. But the negatives feel like some logic that's translating the value on the sparkline chart into the pixels is not working correctly in a fundamental way. Whereas this one feels like it could just be off by 1, because we're always failing so far on the high side. We've always seen it fail at 100 specifically, where it needs 99. But on the low side, we've seen a couple of different negatives, and that feels like a more fundamental problem from transitioning between the range relevant in the sparkline chart to the range relevant in the pixels. Steep. I guess, is it always steep because we're always using the same... How does it decide if it's steep? What does steep mean? Is it just always steep because we're always using the same... sparkline, and the sparkline just is steep. Negative 4.0. How's it going, Johnny? Good morning. I don't remember if I said that or not. Thanks again, by the way, for linking me up with Simple Electronics. Came out this week, which I'm sure you saw. I might have said that when you came in yesterday. Last night as well, too, though, now that I think about it. We're going to have to... So we're always steep, so x is just wrong. For x in range, we're just counting through x0, y1... I mean x0, x1, plus 1. Steep is determined by this. The absolute value of, I guess, is that the slope? I don't know. From x1 minus x0, it's greater than the absolute value of the y's. The difference in the x's is less than the difference in the y's, then it's steep. But is that a virtue of the sparkline itself? Or is that a virtue of the particular point inside the sparkline that we're trying to render right now? Or maybe some of both. Maybe the particular sparkline size and shape makes it more likely. Succeeded a bunch this time. I mean, it's still moving horizontally. And we failed on the high side. Okay, let's start stepping through it again. See if we can spot where the conversion from value range into pixels goes wrong. So we did have two sparklines which were allowed to go negative. We had sparkline 1, which was y-min -1. Where's sparkline 2? Oh. Well, wait a minute. Sparkline 3 is 0 to 120. So sparkline 1 is technically allowed to go negative, but its add value was not allowing it to be negative because it was choosing random from a higher number. Sparkline 2 has minimum 0 and a maximum 1, but we are sometimes feeding it negative numbers. I guess the range changes itself, though. I might need to... I was gonna try to, like, get everything together. I'm gonna leave the comment here before I keep going on the code. I'm gonna keep digging in the code for a bit, but I want to make sure to actually leave the comment here and not just play around in the code and then eventually forget and leave this tab open or something. So, who is this? This is already subscribed on YouTube. Nice. You have the Y top and Y bottom also? Bottom Y top. I think if you mean the comment on there, I've got the comment for that one in there. It will post as one of these ones when I send it, but I'm not sure if that's what you mean. The Y top, Y dot top, Y dot bottom. You might mean something in the code. A few issues attempting to run the examples. Relevant? Relevant? I always spell this wrong. Noted at the relevant sections in the code. which is 1 pixel. In the are able to run successfully in the repo. Got it to work with. Okay, let me catch up here. Both not confusing at all. I have whiteout bottom and whiteout top. A couple of days ago, I think I found a problem in having 0 as ymin or ymax because the line ymin is none. None isn't the same as 0. I do think that's true. None is not the same as 0, I believe. 0 sometimes behaves the same way none behaves. Like if you just do if variable, that variable is none, and if that variable is 0, the behavior will be the same, but they are different. And if you check is none specifically, so like if that code just said if self.ymin, that's different than if the code said if self.ymin is none. In the former case where there is no is none, then 0 and none behave the same, but in the latter case, I think they'll start behaving differently. Can this really be true that a float that 0 triggers is none? I mean, well, I still have to catch up. I'm still behind a little bit. I believe that shouldn't be true, though. I mean, let's test it in the REPL. I believe a float that is 0 should not trigger is none. That's my how I assume it works. 0 if f. No, won't trip that. But if you do if f. If you leave out is none, well, it's also flopped, I guess. We'd have to go if not f, I suppose. Because this evaluates to false because it's 0, 0. If you go if not f, which is a bit more awkward, I suppose. That one executes. And that one executes the same. If f was actually none, and you ran this one, then you get the same behavior as if it was 0. Still executes. 0 isn't always necessarily false, though. Got it to work with ymin is none. we have do we have a time zone conversion library helper of some sort? I don't actually know. Date time? Isn't there Adafruit date time? I don't know if it has time zones. Ymin is none. Self redraw. And the add value. Add value, that's the one in Sparkline. Maybe you meant add values though. So this is a line of code that's in there? Why min? No. Well, you're using the released one though, probably not the PR one. Okay, sorry. I'm still catching up here. In the add, so you changed it to this, that got it to work. Redraw. I don't spot the difference immediately, but I'll come back and look closer. The use of none for formally numerical can be tricky. Avoid it when possible in using numbers. Justify the numerical value to avoid none like the plague. Released one, and to avoid none. Interesting. I use none quite a bit. Just use empty string and 0, sometimes -1. I do use those a fair amount as well. All three of those. Makes code more complicated. So what is the actual difference here? Okay, the way these get put together. Oops. Press to end. Ymin is none. Y bottom, so old logic, this is old logic. I don't know, why is it putting it into a, making a tuple or no? Guess not, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if that's making a tuple or what. Value if not, whatever value is, I don't know where value came from. Value is the value that was added? Value is the value that was added. Value if not self.ybottom. If self.ybottom evaluates to false as falsy, then we use value else. Take the minimum of value in ybottom. And this one here says value if not ybottom. That bit's the same, but now we also have and not equal to 0.0. I see. Okay, so we're distinctifying between 0.0 falsy case. And then this bit's the same, else min. This makes us go to the else and use the minimum thing here. Why does it not? But I think... Why does it not crash with the current version of the library, though? Specifically on the triple example with Sparkline 2. If this is the root cause to our issue, why does it not crash using the current version? This may be a separate... Oh. Oh. Did I edit it inside of here? Yeah, of course I did. Let me try it on the device. I'm curious to see if it still feels the same way. This may be a fix that ultimately fixes it. I think I'm kind of getting the sense that there's some... Well, I don't know. There's a few things that are odd to me. Like, I need to figure out... I need to look at the docs, I guess. I don't know why... Like, why are we giving negative numbers here when we told it the minimum was 0? Is that legit? Are we allowed to do that? Are these just suggestions? Or do these, can they change over time? Is that supposed to be legal for us to give it new values outside that range? Because if that's not supposed to be legal, then there's something wrong with that bit of it. It's not filtering those out. If it is supposed to be legal, then I guess we got to figure out what's the next thing that's weird about Sparkline 2. Why does Sparkline 2 always fail this way? Well, I can't test it very easily. Yeah, I can't test it very easily, truthfully, because in this context, because, well, I mean, I can test it. I can't test if it's what's making this fail very easily, because this only fails in the new version. It doesn't fail in the old version. I would have to find in here, I guess this, but I will probably translate it wrong. I mean, I guess essentially what you did was do... But this says not bottom. See, I don't really trust myself to, like, fix it right in this other context, because I don't really understand what's going on, truthfully. And it doesn't fail with the released one. I think that might be a different... I think this might be a different issue, potentially. Bottom. Bottoms comes from up there. Where did that other code go? So the difference, I guess, is that we are using y-bottom, which is on self here, as opposed to just bottom, which is just a variable not on self. But this is checking the same variable here. So not bottom and then it is checking the same variable to see if it's not equal to 0. So in this one, that would be not bottom and bottom not 0. Whoop. No, we still crashed this way. So that's very likely a fix for a different issue, I think. We got onto 100 still. Let's see if it fixes, maybe it fixed the negative side. Maybe now we only fail on 100. That could be. Yeah, actually, that might be the case. Nope. Okay, no, yeah, we still hit negative there. Okay. Okay, let me catch up here. I need to look at the docs too and figure out if X min and Y min, like if that range is supposed to be a constraint or a suggestion. Nothing is ever equal to none except none. Okay, sorry, yeah, I was still a bit behind here, unlike Booleans where everything converts to false or true. But I saw using -1 for something in the cowbell, but it was within the scope of the variable, not specifically numerical calculations. Calculations I'd avoid using none. Unspecified or invalid. Yeah, that's how I use none sometimes, is when it's either unspecified or invalid. Like it's set to a third. I mean, I use it like I would null in Java, really. It's just like a third thing that definitely doesn't look like a real value. It's easy to identify as either unset, hasn't been set yet, or was set back to that because something catastrophic happened or whatever. And as a way to mean not specified or undefined. Yeah. Requires to make sure that you test it at entry point, every point where it could be none. Open collector. Impedance, absence of signal. None could be trippy. Tricky. Trippy too, I suppose. A lot of JSON parsing. Bringing my head against OAuth walls. False is equal to none. I was thinking more of numbers. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna undo this for now. That could very well. That does seem like a legit fix though, because it does look like this logic confuses none with like I can see why that's problematic based on I don't see exactly how to trigger it just right to make it problematic, to make it, I don't know if it crashes or if it just puts the point in the wrong spot. I don't quite visualize where the consequences are of that, but I could definitely see how the logic changes with the one you added. So that could definitely be a legit fix. But do put that PR. If you have the case where it fails, too, put that in the post as well. For this, I think we want to check, we need to figure out why we get negatives. And we may not get to the bottom of this mystery today, truthfully. I do have a bit more juice to go here, but probably not too much. Add value. We got inside add value, which just got inside add values, which just went. Well, let's actually look at what's happening here. So add values came in as. Well, so in our case, it came in as a list with a single value. We're then enumerating those values, but in our case, we just have the one, so it's just that single value again. The value was 1.43 in this case. Let's look at the docs again. Sorry, I got sidetracked from that. Look at the current docs. What is min and max supposed to be? Are those supposed to be like actual minimum maximum, or just like starting lower range for the x-axis set to none for auto range? Upper range for the x-axis set to none for auto range. Dyne pitch is true. Will always span the complete width, otherwise it will grow when you add values. Once it has reached, then it will scroll to the left. The value to be added. Note, when adding multiple values, it's more efficient to call this method with parameter update false than to manually call update. Well, that seems fine. Unfortunately, that's a bit inconclusive. So let me look back at the old code. And let me look back at it unmodified. Let's go just roll back. Yeah, I think just that one block of code there, but extra new line down further. Inside add value. So our value is coming in and it's not none. So we're fine there. If length, that we don't need to worry about. That has nothing to do with our problem. We can just assume that's going to be true. Or not. It doesn't. Does it matter? I don't think it matters. This is tricky though. I still don't understand why it fails. It's hard to... basically try to understand the intention of the original one and then fit it into the context of the new one, I suppose. Because really what I'm trying to understand is the way it was originally written, are those supposed to be full bounds? I guess let's follow the logic the way it was originally written here. So value, it's not none. Let's just say we are not full. Let's say the length of list is not greater than that. We're not going to do any of that stuff. Append it into the list. If ymin is none, so let's say in our case, no, it's not none because it is whatever it was set to for sparkline 2, which was 0. None converts to false. Oops. It's not none, it is 0. This should not trip, so we will not go... I mean, I tested 0.0. I assume int 0 behaves the same. So my understanding here is ymin is 0, therefore ymin is not none. This is not true. We do not go in here. We also do not go in here because ymax is also not none. It is 1 in our case. So it just adds it to the list. So in our hypothetical here, we said this was not true. We added it to our list. We said none of these were true, so we just called update if update was true. So let's just say that it was. So we are now going to be inside update. Number of points is how many things are in the list. If number of points is less than 2, then last equals 0. I don't know. I don't know what this is for. Oh, bail out early if I should read the comments on if we only have a single point. There's nothing to draw if there's only 1 point. Fair enough. Dynamic pitch. Dynamic X pitch? What is that? supposed to do? Dynamically change X pitch. So this does say X pitch. And all of everything else we're looking at is Y. So I don't think that should matter. I don't feel like that should matter. Only add a new segment if redrawing is not necessary. Don't quite follow that, but that's okay. Into the last line, so this is setting up some points. And it's calling plot line. Oh, you know what? I had a thought. This is totally out of left field from your perspective. While I was making my coffee, it was right after we talked about arcs for a minute, and I wanted to say, I had the thought, is there a draw arc? Just draw a line. It's not, okay. For a second, I was thinking there was a draw arc. Not look like it. Finally here, we're looping over all the things in the list. Don't draw anything for the first point. Those Y min and Y max, are those... The Y bottom is used, which was influenced by them, I think, right? Flipped. Context is expecting a Boolean that'll be false instead of a number. But if 0 is a valid number, then it might not be none. Might not be equals none. A number never equals none. Adding 0.0 and then a higher value, Y min will not be 0.0. Yeah, I was just going to try doing some manual ones. I will do that here in a second. Then Y use if value is not none. It's not a number. I will do a couple. I want to do some... right now we're just adding them random. Let's do it a bit differently. Honestly, I think I kind of just want to leave the display auto refresh on. I might just comment everything in here for now. Our range is supposed to be 0 to 1, so let's just say 0.5 we're going to add. Let's run it like that. Let's go one step at a time here. Okay, so far so good. Seemingly. Okay, so far so good. Let's add another one, 0.75. So that seems pretty reasonable to me. Our range is from 0 to, well, 0 would be on the bottom, I suppose, to 1 on the top. we had a first point of 0.5, we had a second point of 0.75, so we have a line from halfway vertically to 3/4 vertically. Seems totally fine so far. Let's do a 0. That should take us back down to the baseline. Okay. And print sparkline.ymin. We might have too many other prints on. I want to go back to the original one for now. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what I think these were, how I think these were intended to behave with the max min. And then from there I can maybe make a determination about how they behave in the new version, but I still don't have a clear picture of how they were intended to behave originally. The best thing I can do to try to figure that out is just experiment some with the currently released one. Important to note, though, it doesn't actually tell me the full intention. I could maybe reach out to Kmatch, see if he has any recollection. It was a long time ago, though, when he made it. And then I think somebody might have came along after Kmatch and changed the way that it functioned. I don't remember for certain. Yeah, using none as defaults, I do find definitely helpful sometimes. Okay. So we basically, yeah, we're looking good still. Everything, so far, everything is looking the same. In fact, what might be good ultimately to understand, yeah, one of the things, you know what I should do more? Kevin, is it AJW, Kevin Walters, has made tests that I've seen a few times on GitHub. They're really good about this. A technique that I would say I should probably use more, which is in order to compare different versions of the library. Like, I always think of a library as like I have a display shapes library on my PyPortal at any given time, right? Like, there's one display shapes library. Maybe it's the real current released one. Maybe it's the new modified one from the PR. Maybe it's a new one that I'm working on that's not even in a PR yet. Maybe it's one that I just started randomly changing stuff in to troubleshoot or whatever. Anyway, though, I always kind of think of it as that is the display shapes library on my device. But there's no rule for that, right? Like, you can have 2 or 10 or whatever. I can have the current one and the new one. Just give them different names. I do have to do that. Give them different names and then change the imports. So what we could actually do, though, what I'm getting at is we could have Sparkline 2 in the current library drawn here, Sparkline 2 in the new library drawn here. We could add the same points to them and figure out where the difference comes from, essentially. That would be one way to maybe help hone in on where the difference is. Are we able to, okay, so this time we are able to do y-mins, and we have 0 every time. So far y-min has not changed. Y-top and y-bottom, I meant, sorry. Oh, y-top and y-bottom. Yeah, no. I think I followed you. I think I meant, or I mean, I think I followed what you meant there. But I am still why min and why max. That's the part I'm unsure. I'm trying to understand if those were meant to be, you know, just guidelines, as the pirates might say, or if those were like actually supposed to be maximum minimum. Because what I'm finding is, so like let's take the PR out of the mix. Let's take the PR out of the mix and let's just look at the current one. What I'm trying to get to the bottom of in my own brain here is let's just go to the examples, I guess. Triple. Well, I'll look at the other ones as well. Actually, I should go back and compare. But in these examples, Sparkline 2, when it gets created here, it has a ymin 0 and a ymax of 1. This implies to me that you should not be allowed. I mean, it implies one of two things. Either these are actual limits or these are just suggestions. And I guess that's what I'm trying to understand. If these are actual limits, then in my mind, it should raise an exception if someone adds -1 or 1.8. Anything outside this range, I think should raise an exception. But the way the actual code is written, when it adds values, it adds from -1 to 2. So it's like clipped. I guess I should have been reading the comments before. It will clip values. It will not display them. Will it? Okay. Yeah, I should have read the comment. That's the part that I'm trying to straighten out of my head, and I think we may have just, I guess, gotten the intent out, right? Based on this, the intent is that those are just suggestions. Those are, you set them when you initialize it, you're allowed to go outside the range. It just comes with the understanding that it won't be visible on the chart. But does it, what I'm wondering now is, does it run off the top of the chart or bottom? Or does it just skip the point altogether? Does it essentially treat it as the highest point available, or does it just ignore it entirely? That should be easy to figure out, actually, because we can just do one of these that are... I'm going to go, let's go below. Let's try negative first. -1.6. And let's see if it changed ymin or if it stays the same. It stayed the same, okay, so it does not update. Now, if you had used none, then I think it updates. So that's the other crux into this, is if you set it to none, then it updates. So I think it ran off the bottom, right? It's hard to tell though, right? Because we did a 0 before. Probably should, let's not do the 0 before. Let's also add another one after. So it does not ignore it. It draws it draws towards it. Just goes off the chart. Kind of a phantom continuation down here. Does not simply just skip it. It's decidedly different than if it just skipped it. this is the PR one. I think. Works. Okay, so the problem is that inside the one that's called not, it also tries to import from the other one. Doesn't have ymin either. I think we could do ymins an S as a list and then get the first one. Might be nice to have that property back. That's another one of those where it was never coded as a property before, but it was put as a variable onto self and therefore kind of became a property. Was functionally a property, I suppose. Oh, you still fail again, though. Talking about the case when min and max are not specified auto range. Okay. In some situations, it might be beneficial to show dips below instead of substituting 0. Yeah, I don't know if it's substituting 0 or if it's like drawing the angle that it would. There's a subtle difference between just, is like the slope would be different if it were going to 0 versus if it were going to. Is that true? Or that might not actually be true. Maybe the slope is the same. I'm not very good at geometry. You probably just shouldn't trust my how I think some line would get working with its slope, basically, to being useful depending on what the intent for the graph is. Why mins? We didn't fix these to mins. Did get no attribute draw though. We got a different error. I think like else is broken. Polygon has no attribute draw. This is something to do with the change from static to okay, yeah. It's another place where this needs that. Yeah. Oop, wrong browser. Oh, wait, what? Oh. Yeah, I have a bunch of extra prints in it now as well, though. A bunch of extra prints, actually. Actually surprised it's printing that much. So, okay, so the behavior here is different. Interestingly, we don't crash yet. I'm actually surprised by it, but the behavior here is different. And actually, this is what I was trying to maybe express before and failed, which is that in the currently released version, it draws the line as though it's going to the point that's down there that it can't actually reach. And then when it draws the next line, it draws it from that imaginary point and you don't start seeing it. So I guess really the thing that changes is the slope of the next line. This one, I guess, is the same slope, right? Like it would just continue to be down here. But this one, if that point was down here, then its slope is much, much different. And that's where we got that gap on the bottom before. And this one is behaving differently. What did I turn off, though? Are we on the one with... No, this is still... Yeah, this is turned on right now. So I think that this is probably a good thing. I think I still don't have the full picture, but I think the behavior change here is probably part of the puzzle as to why this crashes on the new one versus the old one. And so part of the question we're reviewing is, do we want the old behavior? Do we want it to use a phantom point that's off the bottom of the graph and then resume from that phantom point, but just not show anything it can't? Or do we want it to do it like this behavior here, which is essentially it substituted 0 for the one it couldn't do? Like the way it's behaving looks good to me, though I don't know what the intention is. Which one? I don't know exactly which one I was on when you said that. You like the other one, the one where there's a gap, or you like this one where it essentially trades it for 0? I think you're trying to say you like the other one better. I could be wrong, though. The one where there was a gap, where it had the phantom point down below. Like XY should always show negative. Problem is having an invisible part with problem is that, okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe you're saying you like the 0 one better. Problem is with that is having an invisible part of the graph, like everything should be on a graph, even if it's in the negative. Oh, no. Okay, I think I just turned that backwards again. I'll wait to, oh, you changed your mind. Okay. So you like, just to clarify though, you like this, you like the one we have now better, the one where it's using 0 instead of the phantom point below. I think I lean towards the phantom point below, personally. But I am still undecided. Well, but it's not unreadable per se. And I think it depends. I think there are some situations, I guess that's probably really the crux of it, is there's going to be some situations where you would want one or not the other. I'll say my beef, it's not, I don't really feel that strongly about it. The thing that makes me lean towards the other one over this one is that the other one accurately represents the data. And with the min and max that the user specified. Like, they could have chosen to leave these off, in which case, then they're no longer, then they're saying, okay, show me the full height. I don't want to see just my one little window. But I think if they choose to say, nope, I want just that window, 0 to 1, and then if we draw it this way, we're misrepresenting the data. We're making the data look like there was a 0 here, when in actuality there was a negative 1.6 or whatever it was. And with the other way, with the currently released one, the way it draws, to your point, there is a data point that you can't see, that is unreadable per se. But the upside of having that unreadable or unseeable data point is kind of that it visually does not misrepresent the data. It makes, you have to read between the lines. You have to read between the points, actually, right? Because you have to kind of, your brain has to put together the fact that the point is down here. But you have I feel like you walk away with, if you actually know the bounds again, so you have to have known that this was set here. But if you knew that that was set there, you walk away from this with a more accurate picture of what the data is, that this data point is down below 0, rather than the other one where you could think that data point was actually 0. If it stays below, that's a good point. Yeah, if it stays below, it could get weird. You could have a whole gap where you just don't see anything drawn. That would be weird. I will grant you that for sure. If you had multiple points that were below, then you kind of have stuff happening that's just outside the range. I mean, I would argue, though, in that case, like, they should just not set these. If they would not set these, or if they would use them as none, then it will use that adaptable range, and it will always fit the data. So, like, my take is, if they have set this, then we let them, we let them have that setting, basically. Essentially, what the other one does, the other one almost, does it just behave the same as, I think it almost just behaves the same as if it had auto range on, actually. So it almost just ignores the range they did. I'm trying to picture in my head if auto range, I think auto range, I think visually it's actually kind of doing the same thing. It's just like ignoring what the auto range setting was. T. Grover says, I prefer the phantom point. Sometimes the slope of the line is meaningful, particularly when wanting, velocity. Yep. Data integrity is good, but interpolation has its place too. Phantom, another vote for Phantom from Maxwell. With such a small device, probably best to have data accuracy, because the small microcontrollers aren't the most powerful and accurate devices anyways. That's true. Yeah, we got some other rounding potentially going on. What happens with 2 negative? Yeah, so that's what we were saying. It'll just stay below. It will just stay below. So you'll have a gap, essentially. You'll have a widening gap that you are not able to see. So if we added another one, maybe 1.2, for instance. Actually, let's go negative 0.2. Let's go right up next to 0. What this will do, too, is it will change the slope of the... it will change the slope of this line. But it might... I think it will make this gap wider as well. That's my hypothesis, I think. Yeah. A wider gap that also starts further to the left. And then this is not quite as steep, because this is now coming from negative 0.3 instead of negative 1.6 or whatever. If it becomes visible, then it's a user configured problem and it needs to be reconfigured. Didn't realize it worked that way. Yeah, just have it have the user reconfigure it. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is if they specify the range, then we let them we have them keep that range, and then if they don't, I am curious. Does this actually look the same? So in my head, this will basically look the same as the other one did. Yeah, where we will. Well, actually, specifically, this one would not look the same anymore because the old one would have shown 2 points at 0, whereas what we got was 1 point down here and 1 point up here. And on this chart, and if you look at those might not even be the accurate labels. I'm not sure. This might be for Sparkline 1. I don't know. This one would look slightly different, though, because there'd be 2 points on 0. Yeah. I do think I like that behavior, though. Yeah, we let them get the gap. If they specified the range, then we let them have the gap. Working with an oscilloscope where something is out of range, you just have to adjust. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, something is, I think right now, today, those X-min and Y-min, I think you set it at the beginning, and if you set it to none or you choose not to set it, then it becomes auto range. It might be cool if those were properties you could change. Like maybe the user code could be saying, based on its own minimum and maximum values, maybe the user code could be smartly updating minimum and max. Like maybe there are some cases where it doesn't want to go all the way to show an outlier. But maybe it wants to show things that are close to the current cap or something. If Ymin and Ymax were settable after the fact, then user code could kind of adjust on the fly if it had ranges where it was like, I'd rather show that one than let it go above or below. But then on like full outliers that are way further away, it could choose to filter them out and just not touch the range. Figured the Dyn whatever. Yeah, I don't follow Dyn. So the Dyn thing is something to do with X movement instead of Y movement. I think the deal is that I need to try it again. Off the top of my head, though, in my memory, the difference is that if you have that thing true, then it will... Actually, I don't remember if it's true or false, honestly, but one of the modes, it it will always occupy the full width of the graph. So right now, this graph has only 5 points or whatever, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. We put 5 points in this graph, but it is occupying the full width, discounting the fact that obviously we have some below at this point. But we are, in terms of the horizontal width that we occupy, it is the full one. My understanding is with that dyn thing in the other mode, instead, we would only be occupying a small portion of the width. The rest of the width would be reserved for the remaining, 30 or however many points you're allowed to put in the chart before it starts scrolling, before it starts kicking ones out of the front of the queue. So it basically makes it so like you're always visualizing the entire queue, even the blank ones, rather than this way where the blank ones get ignored, essentially. We just ignore if the queue is 30 long, but we only have 5 in it, then we just treat it as though those are the only 5. We don't leave space for the other 25. That's my understanding of it, but definitely bearing in mind, I could be wrong. And I also, like I said, I don't know if it's true or false. I don't know which one is which, or if I'm even correct. Oh. 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 Okay. That does seem to be roughly the right concept. I feel like I got the concept right. We left space for some other points. That feels like a bug, though, right? Surely that feels like a bug. Which one? Are we on released or... Ooh, yeah, we are on real one. That might be a bug in the released library, I think. Presumably this should do the same as... presumably dyn should not affect whether it's allowed to go below or above like that, I think. Actually surprised... I'm actually really surprised that that does that. Because our bitmap I thought was only 100 by 100. Somehow this made a bigger bitmap, it must have. Interesting. Okay, that's a whole nother can of worms, but looks like we have some potential touch-ups to do there as well, where if dyn x is false, our bounds no longer... Our bounds get weird. Put it technically, they get weird. As you may want to zoom in on a few points, phantom points are essential. That's a good point too. Yeah, if you're trying to like zoom into a specific spot in the scale, then the phantom, like all the ones you're not zoomed into become phantom points. That's true. Actually, I kind of figured dyn whatever would do that dynamically. This is actually cool stuff. Can set a high-low trigger and capture waveforms. Maybe dyn works within display height width. Could be. I'm not sure how it chose the height for that thing. I think I'm gonna call it a day for now there though. We did leave this comment. This person has gotten back a bit. Okay, so that one we fixed. That one just needs to be switched back. Okay, so they responded to one of them only 2 minutes ago. Actually, I don't know if this person is watching. If you're watching, Metrek, I don't know if that's the right way to pronounce your name. I apologize if not. But thanks for working on this, by the way, my friend. I always love to see people making improvements to display IO stuff. So mucho appreciated. All right. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. There's definitely, we definitely just opened another can of worms there at the end, so we have some more stuff that we could look into. I was thinking maybe we'd get to some other ones, but I didn't quite realize how big this one, how many layers there were to this onion, but I'm glad because now I have a much better understanding of how this thing works. And I feel like I'm in a much better position at this point to actually give it a proper review once it is working with the code. One thing I do think maybe that's still worth mentioning is the way the static functions are used. maybe I'll try to add another comment here and ask about those static functions and if there's a reason that we don't want those to be instance. I feel like I lean towards instance, but I'm not. Maybe there's something I'm not. Maybe there's something I'm not considering. Fantastic stream. Brain cells exercise. Yep. Thank you. Did it. Documented the hardware bodge fix for the cowbell. Not sure if you've seen the fix. I have. I don't think I did. I saw something about the bodge fix in the repo, but I don't remember for certain. Oh. 3 steps highly recommended. Trace cut. This is where? This is by the MCP, one of them. Okay, yeah, I see the little dip there. Okay, so one of those gets cut, it looks like. Non-metallic. Yeah. What's the matter? Chrome nail polish? Chrome nail polish is not what I should use while I'm trying to cut a connection. Scrape away. That one might be tougher, I don't know. Well, maybe do I understand? Scrape away traces? Jumper wire from chip to chip. I'll have to watch the video too. I definitely am a video watch along learner. Top of the board recommended you use the solder joints on the bottom. Can you still do it if these are soldered already? I guess you're saying the solder joints on the bottom, so yeah, I assume you could. Did you see address change? Okay, does this ultimately, does this move these onto the same bus, and then therefore you now need a new address for one of them? Yeah, okay. This is moving it so the 2 expanders live on the same bus. Because these Picos have 2, which is like amazing. This makes it so they both live, and then therefore you need to change the jumper so that they have 2 different addresses, which makes sense. And then once you've done all that, you get the entire other bus back. Which means you can also have the stemma port if you want it. Or the little breakout next to it, which is probably what I would go for. I never soldered a surface mount stemma. I don't know that I could... Oh, I don't have one to solder, first of all, but honestly, I don't... Looking at the size, I don't know that I could get it on there properly anyway. Should use the paste, I guess, right? In the hot plate or air. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely... Thank you. I had not seen this part. The thing that I was thinking that I had seen was definitely not this. So yeah, thanks for the pointer on that. I will definitely watch through the video. Whoa, before I go picking the X-Acto to anything. Yeah, that looks straightforward enough. Cut a couple of traces there. This one I'm less sure, but I'm sure the video is going to have more details about what to do there. And then the address I think I get as well. Change. Cool. 2 traces to scrape away. Puts both on 0, frees up the stemma and the entire bus. Nice. I solder the stemma connector by hand. Oh, okay. I may give it a try if I'm feeling adventurous, but I don't have much hope for myself to be able to make it, but we'll see. I got to practice my tiny soldering a lot more, truthfully. I'm like, through hole is my bread and butter. I don't go much smaller than that. I did manage to get some of the surface mount, like the 3.5 millimeters and stuff. Those were surface. I didn't have too much trouble with those, truthfully, so those are nice and huge, though. And they had those aligner pegs that made it possible, truthfully. Stemma without the aligner peg would be a much bigger challenge. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. I do hope everyone has a good weekend. I will be back I should be back on Monday at some point. Don't know exactly what time of day. Not sure if I'm running the meeting this week. I'll have to look at the calendar and figure that out. But I'll probably stream a little bit on Monday, carrying on with some library stuff. May or may not be back tomorrow. Don't know for sure. But either way, hope everyone has a good rest of your weekend. And I will see you next time. Whether it is tomorrow or Monday or whenever you feel like watching next, I will be here. Thanks.